Oh, that's real good.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our channel Penny Lesson. We talk about everything finance, from tips on making money and proper investing to news about the different economies and situations affecting the global markets. The goal of this channel is not only to teach you how to be more financially responsible but also to teach you how to be more aware of global events. So why not just sit back and relax while we tell you what's happening in the finance sphere? Be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to be constantly updated on my latest videos. Remember, one penny lesson a day keeps being penny less away. We're living through one of the most challenging moments in our global economy. For 50 years, the world has favored free trade and globalization, only to have a worldwide epidemic disrupt supply networks. Despite labor difficulties, trade wars, and actual wars on the doorstep of the world's greatest economy, most U.S. economic indices look healthy. Growth is strong, unemployment is low, and asset markets are near all-time highs. But has this only been achieved by subverting the natural order of things with the most expensive and expansive fiscal and monetary policy decisions in history? Are we entering a new era where severe downturns caused by genuine economic hardships can be avoided with piles of cash? Or is this all delaying the inevitable and potentially making it worse? Most of you probably aren't used to seeing economists apply this argument to entire nations using aggregate numbers. Aggregate supply and aggregate demand are terms economists use to describe the total supply of goods and services in an economy and the total consumption of those goods and services, respectively. Economic growth can be achieved by increasing either of these factors, but long-term stability requires expanding both. Increased supply without increased demand would mean more goods and services are consumed, with the added benefit of lower prices. However, deflation is not sustainable long-term. Economic growth generated by rising demand without expanding supply is also feasible but unsustainable for a long time. If demand grows without an equal growth in supply, people will have to compete to get the goods and services they want. This competition usually comes in the form of just paying more money. The increasing price level of goods and services in an economy is inflation, which can seriously harm. The trick is to ensure an economy grows by growing supply and demand more or less equally. Growing supply is simple in theory. Increase land, labor, and capital. Raise and train a skilled workforce, or attract foreign workers. Give them the space and facilities they need to add value to the market by working in a factory, researching new technologies, providing financial services, or anything else of value that can be supplied to the aggregate demand. Of course, simple in theory does not equal simple in practice. In almost all major economies, the private sector is the primary supply of goods and services, so the government can't just order 100 new factories to be built to increase output. There are some direct ways that government can do this, but the real solution for governments is to use indirect methods to encourage supply-side growth in their economies. The private sector handles some industries best, while the government handles others. Deciding where to draw the line is the hard part, but thousands of government policies are in place worldwide to stimulate business activity. Of course, all of this means nothing if the demand isn't there to go with it. Businesses are profit-driven, thus they can't operate without a market for their goods and services. Demand is a function of customers, companies, or governments willing and able to buy a good or service. Aggregate demand is all the participants in an economy's ability and willingness to consume all the goods and services that the economy provides. Increasing demand is as simple as putting more money in people's pockets and making them willing to spend it. The more money part is easy. Just cut taxes, increase welfare, or give money to people directly in extreme circumstances. Getting people to spend that money can be a little trickier. You may probably assume that there are two types of economic downturns: demand and supply. Demand-based recessions are the foundation of the cyclical business cycle. Fortunately, people with good jobs take out enormous loans to buy lots of things, and the companies that make those items use the proceeds to provide people with good jobs. This debt eventually needs to be repaid, causing the debt cycle. If someone makes $100,000 per year after taxes, they could spend $100,000 per year, but at some point, they may want to buy new things, which would mean spending more than they make that year. They have two options to make this possible. The first is to forgo consumption for a few years to save up the money needed for the big purchase. Counter-cyclical monetary and fiscal policy has been used for decades to smooth the debt cycle. While they cannot eliminate booms and busts, they can smooth them out to make recessions less severe at the expense of making booms less extreme. The other type of economic downturn is supply shocks. Actual harm to an economy's ability to produce value or causes these downturns. Calamities, trade conflicts, and worldwide pandemics can all affect an economy's output. Supply shocks reduce supply, which limits an economy's growth. But as we saw earlier, it's hard for governments to stimulate supply because that's not their domain. Even privatization, as controversial as it is, probably isn't the right tool for the job during a supply shock because governments won't get good deals by selling off their infrastructure during an economic downturn. Trying too hard to avoid these downturns can push this delicate balance out of whack, causing worse issues down the road. Inflation is the obvious problem at the moment as government stimulus has boosted demand to all-time highs while supply struggles with stagnant domestic production and disrupted global supply chains. The most accessible place to see this is in investments. During good economic times, a lot of money flows around the economy, and businesses will find it easy to attract investors who are more likely to invest because of an economic boom. This will generate asset markets with unreasonably high values and encourage investments in weak enterprises. If investors can rely on government intervention to prop up markets, they have no motive to take their work seriously. Economic downturns cause the most vulnerable businesses in an economy to fail, allowing companies with better products, management, and systems to fill the void. If a car manufacturer goes out of business during a recession, they will have to liquidate their machinery and lay off their staff. These are capital and human resources that can be used by a company that survived the downturn. Of course, not all of these workers will be rehired, which is another way recessions can be good. Most economists are hesitant to talk about any benefit of economic downturns, and even fewer want to talk about this perk. Recessions get rid of underperforming businesses and underperforming workers. Companies will find it hard to attract new employees if the economy is fully employed because no one is looking for work. This makes attracting workers more expensive because businesses must compete to offer the highest salary for a given position. It also makes getting rid of bad employees more difficult because a lousy employee is often better than no employee. Australia once had a sizable automotive industry, with Ford, GM, Holden, and Toyota having significant operations. These operations have since closed, and one of the biggest reasons was not the cost of Australian labor, which was comparable to Germany and the US, but rather the attitude of the Australian workforce. Motor companies reported up to 50% of their workforce faking sick days to extend public holiday long weekends. NAIRU, or the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, tracks the relationship between inflation and employment. The more people are employed, the higher the inflation rate will be as the increased cost of salaries and unproductive workers are passed to consumers. This is compounded by the increased aggregate demand from the same households that will be demanding those higher wages. Economies work best when participants compete. Businesses must compete for a limited pool of customers and investors, and workers must compete for good-paying jobs. In an economy where customers compete to buy consumer goods and businesses must beg workers to stay, prices and productivity will rise. Recessions can reintroduce this competitiveness. One of my more colorful economics professors expressed it best. Economic downturns are painful, but the pain lets people know what's wrong and points to areas that need fixing. There's nothing wrong with governments giving out painkillers to avoid the worst of this necessary evil. But take too many or take them for too long and you'll end up with harmful side effects while doing nothing to avoid the issues that cause the pain in the first place. Wow, was that news? Why not ponder it? Want to know the latest? Comment if you want more articles like this. This video is just one of many videos on my channel that brings you the latest news about the world of global finance and economics. So go hit that subscribe button if you don't miss out on content like these. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. Thank you for all your support, and I'll see you again next time. Remember, one penny lesson a day keeps being penny less away. Cheers.